Hi all, this is Block the Middle reporting for the Daily Futsal, TDF. I'm here with Idafe Perez Jimenez, who's shortly going to be asked a few questions. We have a conversation about futsal in the UK. Just so everyone knows, from our mission statement and what we're trying to do at the Daily Futsal, it was created with the dual objective to educate futsal stakeholders on contemporary issues facing the sport and to help promote and develop futsal in the UK. The Daily Futsal serves as a platform to answer questions surrounding the development of futsal in the UK and contemporary issues surrounding the sport on a global scale as well. The TDF team are here at the service of the futsal community to provide solutions that you may face as a stakeholder. You know, you could be a coach, an athlete, a director of a club, part of a governing body, a sports developer, a marketer, and myself, I'm Block the Middle. We've got Ala Pivot and Hector, who will be blogging, will be sharing, and will be bringing news to you to try and ascertain what the problems are. Can we give the answers? And there'll be some coaching tips, etc. too. So again, I've got Idafe Perez Jimenez here. He is the director of the Idafe, the International Futsal Academy, based in Loughborough, and he's also the technical director of Loughborough Futsal. And great to have you, Daf.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you? Glad to be with you.
That's great. Good to have you too. You're obviously the first person here. You're quite known in the futsal community in the UK, especially you've been around for a while. Obviously, Loughborough are a fairly dominant force, especially in the north, and have made it to FA Cup semi-finalists. You also made it to the grand finals more recently. And so it's great to have you on and share your views. I thought I'd start just with the first thing that most, considering Michael Skubala, who's been involved with the Loughborough setup recently, has obviously pushed that aside and in recent times and very recently has been named as the England manager. The question probably on most people's lips at the moment is a bias towards Loughborough players. So my question would be, just to start it off, Dad, just to make it nice and easy for you, is the England team, in your opinion, biased towards squad selection, in particular of Loughborough or IFA players?
Well, we have at the moment 29 players in the IFA. 27 of them are English eligible. We give them 4 to 7 sessions a week. We have for them the best coaching staff in the country, 2 UEFA Pros, 1 UEFA A, 2 UEFA Bs. We give them the Loughborough environment, which everybody knows is a perfect place for sports people to keep developing. We recruit players that are already excelling in other places. Most of our first years were already involved with the England setup before coming to Loughborough, actually. And I would love to take the credit for getting them in the England setup, but the reality is Grimsby, York, Bristol, Birmingham, Peterborough got them in the England setup, and we've been lucky enough to recruit them for our setup. If anything, I would say that we are unlucky that some of our players get overlooked because there are so many of them already in the system. I can guarantee you that if you recruit some of the best young players in the country, you give them the right environment, you provide them with the most qualified and best coaches around, and you coach them for a number of hours. We coach them up to the level of detail we coach them, you will get them in the England setup as well. No, I don't think there is a bias towards Loughborough. I think we are biased towards having good players and to train them well. Okay,
so how many contact time hours would you have a week as an IFA or a Loughborough player?
In the IFA, we have, depending on the week, because we are a higher education program, so we adapt our schedule to exam times and things like that. Depending on the week, 4 to 7 sessions a week, of which 5 are core time, 1 or 2 gym. So around 14 to 16 hours in total a week.
Okay, that's a sizable amount of time. So what you're trying to say is that, so you're already recruiting players that are already on the England setup. So you might
we again, the clubs they come from, your Grimsby Town, your York cities, your Bristol cities, your Peterborough, are already doing a great work with them. Just pick it up and give them even more good work. We recruit good players, give them good coaching for plenty of hours in a good environment. Well, chances are they will be doing well, those boys.
Okay, so I think that's quite new, probably to a lot of listeners. They must. I think the perception is that players are coming with no current pathway on the England ladder and are managing to get on it because they go and play for Loughborough, because they go and play for the Idafe, because historically, obviously, Michael Scubalo has obviously been the England assistant manager for a number of years when Peter Sturgis was also managing the team. And obviously, I think there's a perception that because he's been in that setup, because he's been based in Loughborough, that he's only been scouting those kind of players. I know it's difficult for you to comment on because you're not Michael Scubala, but if you're already recruiting players that are on the England pathway, do you feel that you're discriminated against a little bit, the fact that you are recruiting good players that are already on the pathway and people are probably giving you a bit of stick because, they feel like, well, if I get one of my boys to go to Loughborough University, they're likely to get an England call-up or an England under-23s or an England under-19s pathway league?
I would love to take the credit for all the players we have that are in the England system, but the reality is there's quite a lot of people out there working very well. And I've mentioned quite a few of those clubs already. We are lucky enough to attract, because of our setup, quite a few of those players that decide that they want to go into higher education and they want to have good futsal beside that higher education. So if those players that are in the England system already come to Loughborough and to the IFA and we give them good coaching, best coaching around for many hours, they work hard, chances are they will keep progressing and they will stay in the system. On top of that, we've historically managed to produce our own players. Not as many as others, obviously, but we've also produced quite a few of our own players. Again, we have a good system, we have a good setup, we have a good environment, and we have good coaching. Chances are players will come through.
Okay, that's great. So I hope that it's good to have two perspectives. As I said, there's probably a bias towards players going to Loughborough, and again, it's not definitive. There's people that are still going to have their perceptions, but it's good to have a voice on the other side as well. In your view, who is the best player you've coached in England?
That's not an easy answer. I wish I would have someone that combined the attitude of the Aldred brothers, Matt and James Aldred, the willing to learn of Russell Goldstein, the intensity of training of Vladimir Derendiajev, the flair of James Webb, the impact on a game of Lucas Totti, the improvisation skills of Stuart Cook, and the influence in the changing room of Ben Mortlock. If I could have a player that had all of that at the same time, well, probably I wouldn't have him. Probably that player would be playing for Inter or for Del Pozo. But there's not a single player that I would say is the best I've had. I've been lucky enough to work with quite a few players that, in their own right, have made a lot of impact, a huge impact in my pathway as a futsal developer and as a coach. Okay,
so you've named a few players there. Obviously, some are eligible and have played for or currently are playing for England, and a few that are non-English. There's with the England team taking a different setup with Michael Scubala, who's now the England head coach, and it's now become a full-time role. How do you feel about what the Football Association, the FA, are doing to develop the game at the moment in the country?
Well, there's still a vacuum that hopefully the appointment of that new full-time position will partially fill. I think a lot of people haven't actually read in detail the job description when it was advertised. Most people are describing that position as a head coach or manager of the England team, and if you read the job description, that seems to be only 20-25% of the job. Most of that position looks like strategic development of futsal in England, and
So that's okay. So it's insightful for those people that didn't know, for example, that there was more to the job role of the New England manager other than just coaching and managing the England national team. It was to also develop the game and find pathway for from under whatever they started at up until the first team. So there is a great pathway, and we are going to develop the game in general. Do you think? Do you think Scoobs is the man to do that? And secondly, do you feel that if it was only 25%, and maybe it might have been 50%, I don't know the exact percentage weight of what it was to becoming a manager, do you think it would have been wise to have one person that fits all, or that they could have split the role into two people, for one to manage and test the waters of the team and try and progress that ranking of the England team, which are currently around 60th in the world, and try and get them higher up a little bit quicker in 40th, 30th kind of bracket, and have someone, completely focused on developing the game? Or do you think it was a job for one person to do?
I think, again, if you read the job description, I think there is two roles embedded into that single position, and I think those two roles, require a completely different skill set. I don't think there is a single person in the world fully, completely qualified to do both part of the job to the top level. I know quite a fair amount of people that are perfectly qualified, and that would be brilliant to do the strategic development part of it. And I know quite a few coaches that would be extremely good to do the England manager side of the role. My opinion is Michael Scubala is probably the best candidate in terms of how well he can do both sides of the job at the same time. I do think the job isn't one. I think it is two. And I think it should have been two positions instead of one. But what we have is what we have. It's better one full-time position than none, which is what we've had until now. And if there is one full-time position, I think Michael Scubala is the right man for the job. Are there better coaches in the world? Yeah, of course there are better coaches in the world. Definitely there are better developers in the world. Is there anyone out there that has the complete picture of futsal in England, that has the knowledge to develop futsal in England, and that is a good enough coach to coach England at the same time? But probably not as good as Michael Scubala, no?
Well, because without having the confirmation, there was rumours about having some world class coaches that did apply for the job that didn't get. I won't go into names because we'll be here a while trying to discuss these names. But there's some ex World Cup winners, European Championship winners, etc. that put themselves forward, and I feel that maybe in the community at the moment they feel hard done by is the wrong word, but they feel like there was coaches that could take it further. But again, we've obviously just discussed quickly that the role wasn't only just to take the England side up the rankings and progress the England team. It was to develop futsal.
I think that impression in the futsal community in England is based on the fact that everybody's been talking about that position as England manager.
Yes, yeah,
and that's fair enough, because that is the flashy part of the job.
Yeah,
that is the one that gets in front of the cameras. That is the one that everybody.
It feels to me like.
But the job is much more than that. It seems to be from the job description.
It feels to me that they.
Commitment. In terms of time commitment, it looks. I don't know. I haven't had access to the fine detail of it, but from reading the job description, it looks like it is about 20-25% of the job.
Yeah. Well,
the remaining 75% requires a detailed knowledge of what English futsal looks like, to have or build up relationships. I don't know who applied or didn't apply to the job in detail, but I struggle to imagine many people that can do both sides of the job proficiently.
100. It just feels, just to clarify that point, it does feel like obviously the futsal community in the UK was quite hit when Simon Walker had stepped down for his own reasons. Within the last 18 months, and I feel like that this role is to be a Simon Walker, to develop the game and also be the manager. So I think that's
The role sounds like a fair bit like taking a lot of what Simon was doing. I don't believe it is exactly the same, but a
Correct. Okay.
With Simon did a great job. I can't imagine him managing England though. And that is the kind of issue we have with having one single full-time position instead of having two separate jobs. Which is that finding the right person that can do both sides of the job, it is tricky. And in that sense, again, I don't think there were many candidates out there that were as qualified as Michael. Probably none.
Well, great. I would guess that, seeing as your background in Loughborough, you spent a lot of time with Scoops, it's good to shed some light on what you feel the skill sets are and the fact that he is probably the man for the job. I just, we've got to move it on, but I think it is intriguing. I think the only thing that people get frustrated with, again, is, and you've answered these right at the beginning, is the fact that, look, players that are getting on the England pathway, be it under 19s, 23s or senior level, they are coming from different regions and they are coming to the IFA, a lot of the players that are involved. But at the same time, I think people are getting frustrated because there hasn't been a full-time role for an England manager. Therefore, there hasn't been the capacity to go and scout properly around the country. Do you feel that will be quite a central role of Michael Scubala's role, that he will have to go and watch games on Sundays and take on information and go and watch for himself, around the country to give everyone a fair crack at the whip to try and get in this England team?
I don't know exactly how many hours that job will have dedicated towards travelling around and watching futsal around. You will need to ask DFA or Michael Scubala that question. I do think we've historically had the issue of players not being seen enough around the system. Having said that, the England under 19s and England under 23 setup is out there precisely to get players seen. And I do believe that if clubs feel they have a player that should be seen, they should put the name forward. I've received from the FA, from the coaches, when I was working at Helvetia, when I've been working in Loughborough, I receive every so often an email from them asking for players to be put forward towards camps. And I've done it in the past, and I've done it with Helvetia. I did it with Helvetia players, and I do it regularly with the Loughborough players. And some of those players get the call up, some players don't get the call up. But when they do, the coaches have the chance to see them. So any club out there that feels players should be seen should put the name forward when they get given the chance. Yeah.
No, definitely agree with that. I just think, and again, we'll move it on because I think we've answered quite a lot of questions on it. But I just feel that, and I think the community would feel that if there is the semi-finals of the FA Cup and the finals, the grand finals, there's a definite feeling that the management staff that Scoobs and himself has around him should be at these events.
Yeah, I agree. It's the showcase. It's the showcase of our futsal. Absolutely, but
historic. Just to butt in on that. But Dav, just to butt in on that, because it might seem an obvious thing, but for in the last couple, the England manager hasn't been at these events, unfortunately, on either the semi-final or the final stage, or sometimes, rarely, one of the events he might turn up to, but not the finals. And I feel that that's where the frustrations come in from the community, is the fact that there isn't, even on these one or two events out of the year, potentially sometimes three, if there's a semi-final set up, depending on what the FA have put through for that season, that they're not being seen by the people that matter, because it's all fine being seen by maybe an under 19 coach, but to see, for the England manager to be there and be watching, it's going to put something more in the heads of the players. Whereas there's a massive demotivation when they're not being seen, especially in the pinnacle of the events for the year. That's just the counter to it, is the fact that you would think it would be the normal thing, but because maybe due to time constraints or whatever, and there not being a full-time role. But do you agree that it must be? That must happen.
To be fair on Peter Sturgis, England manager wasn't his full-time job.
No, correct. That's what I'm saying.
It was an add-on. It was an add-on to it. So
I agree. It's not.
I don't understand
There's still a frustration, though. There's still a frustration.
I don't know what his line manager agreed with him on what he could and what we couldn't do, and what he should and what he shouldn't do. I don't know that.
But if we were to look positively, now that it is a full-time role, it is a full-time role now. So
that we want, all of us want the big figures responsible for futsal in the FA to go to be there and watch. Absolutely. Hopefully, the new role will allow the new manager to go and watch as much futsal as possible. Yeah, hopefully so.
Okay. And just really to sum this up, because obviously you've had experience in the UK. You're obviously heavily qualified. Just remind us quickly of your qualifications are that you have a pro license in football and in futsal. In Spain. Because I know you have experience there as well. What is there anything that we should be looking to do? What the Spanish Association already transmit and has in place that we should be taking? Rather than getting a sponsor and all that kind of side from the youth or from the senior side. Is there anything we should be copying that are fairly simple, or not copying necessarily? Maybe just taking parts of and trying to put it in our own national leagues or in our own youth setups. Is there anything that really stands out like a sore thumb that we should be looking at?
I think it's a mistake to try to replicate Spanish futsal in England, because the game is in a completely different place in terms of its exposure, in terms of its tradition, in terms of the number of players that are involved in it, in terms of how much people know about it. It is in a completely different place. So extrapolating Spanish league or Spanish setup into England is it's simply not realistic. The reality is Spanish kids get exposed to futsal directly in schools. So if anything, we should be trying to get it into schools' curriculums. In my opinion, the biggest problem, the biggest stop to futsal from the FA is that they haven't managed to get it into the program of county FAs. Grassroots football in this country works through county FAs, and at the moment, little to none KPIs in county FAs are related to futsal. Until we have KPIs, until county FAs need to hit certain targets specifically related to futsal, they won't dedicate resources to futsal, and that is something that the Spanish FA doesn't actually need to do. It is something we need to do because we're in a completely different situation. The main thing I would say we can learn a lot from the Spanish in this sense is coach education. I think it is much more comprehensive back there than it is in here. There's a few things that we could take of the manual in that sense. But that applies in general to coach education in England, not only to futsal. And the quality of coaches that is produced in Spain is pretty high. I don't think we are at that level right now just yet. But the FA are making a big effort, I think, on their coach education pathway. And I think they're taking steps in the right direction, and it's a process that will take time. Developing the right courses in the right way takes time, and even more with the lack of tradition of futsal coaching in our country, which in its downtime produces lack of enough good coach educators, even more in futsal.
Would you think the FA, be it county FA level, there are some county FAs that do try and push it, and it depends on the people that they actually have in their staff at the time. For example, Hertfordshire do try and actively promote it. I'm aware that Leicestershire actively promote it, but I understand that there's obviously quite a few that, until it is in their KPIs, they don't have futsal people there. They're not going to progress it as much as they should. Do you feel that
the county FAs only push for futsal if there's someone in their staff that is interested in futsal and want to do it because they want to do it because they are interested? There's no incentive for them to do it though. There is more incentive to push for other things that bring their objectives up to speed. And there are no specifically futsal related objectives. Until it happens,
No, yeah, I'm in agreement there with that. Okay. Do you think that the FA or the county FA, and okay, we've kind of banded around now that if you have someone that's interested in the county FA, that they will then try and progress it, but if they don't have anyone there and there's no KPIs, they won't. From the FA, do you feel like, especially people that are involved in the small-sided game of futsal at the FA, do you think they're utilising people that are in the community that could help their coach education or could help the exposure? Do you think they utilise them enough? Because it does seem as well that there are people that get on this buzzword of futsal and they might be football coaches that might never have seen a game before. And they try and progress them up a ladder. That might not be the best way. Do you feel that there is a good utilisation? Are they actually using the people that they could have in and around them to progress the game as they should?
At the moment, I don't think the FA have a proper, well thought of strategy to develop futsal. And again, that is something, hopefully, having a full-time position dealing with that will help remedy, will help sort out. That lack of strategy also implies that a lot of resources and a lot of talent that might be out there gets neglected, and a lot of people that could potentially help are not involved directly with the development of futsal. There is a lot of people working on it already, and there are advances towards getting coach educators out there. Example, level 2 futsal. Until very recently, there's been 3-4 people delivering level 2 futsal coaching courses. Now they are making an effort to educate many more coach educators that can then go out and deliver those level 2 courses. But that takes time. And until now, there hasn't been a unified, a coherent, a well-thought strategy for the development of futsal as a whole in the country. And until that happens, we will be wasting the resources we have.
Okay, that's great. Daf, I really appreciate your time on here, and I hope that was really informative to the listeners as well. We've obviously gone through from a bias towards the IFA, and I think you've given your opinion. There's always two sides to every story, and I think that was really informative for the people that didn't really know the IFA's point of view and perspective on it. It's great to hear, an advocate of Scoobs. He's obviously done really good things for English futsal, and he's now got his chance as someone who is in a full-time position to really carry the mantle and develop and progress the game. And obviously, we've touched upon as well, is there any similarities between or what we could take from the Spanish side of futsal? Obviously, we're in a different we're in a different area right now to the Spanish futsal. They're much more exposure, as you suggested. And I think that's really informative for people to know. So I really appreciate that, and I'm sure we'll have you back on very soon just to give your input on other futsal-related matters. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So you've just listened to Idafe Perez Jimenez there from the director of the IFA and the technical director of Loughborough. What do you think? Are you in agreement? Are there points where you think they're a bit unfair? Do you feel that his points of view are do you agree with them really? Can you actually see that being put into action? Do you think that's fair from the IFA and the Loughborough's point of view? Do you still think there's a bias? Give your comments below and let us know what you think. So I'm Block the Middle from TDF, and we'll speak to you very soon.